Yeah, it's already got some battle scars for Maude's leaf spring. So this is potentially going to be quite awkward. The passenger side was way more hassle. Wish I tried that an hour ago. Stuck to the shackle. Just made my way to Inky Autos. Thanks in advance, sir.
Don't thank me just yet.
Oxyacetylene.
Like old Fords, it needs a choke to get it going.
It's looking even more ropey. Mk2 Transit V6. Doesn't poke through here. So that is scrap. No, stripped. Has snapped off. Moving inside it. She rotten. Getting a bit crispy. Yeah, she's gonna need some work. Hello and welcome to this video. I'm Marcus Hayes and today you join me round at the garage at home and I've come round to spend some more time on Maude, my moredoor Mk2 Escort. Now apologies to those of you that would prefer I didn't keep switching from one car to the other, but it was just more convenient for me to work on Maude today rather than head round to my other garage to work on INSTA, my Mk2 Escort. It's actually just started raining, which is annoying, but the sky looks relatively clear, so hopefully that rain will pass in a minute. Now over here, I've got the half shafts that I recently picked up from Escort Tech. Now I won't be fitting those in this video, but tomorrow I'll be going to see the guys at Inky Autos to pick up Maude's new welded diff, which was actually given to me by my friend Matthew, which will then mean that I'll have all the bits I need to put this thing back together. Now yesterday I was chatting to Oscar, the winner of my recent raffle, through email, and I've arranged to drop his prizes off to him next weekend. He's chosen the blue RC Escort, which is obviously based on INSTA, my Mk2 Escort. I don't blame him, it looks absolutely awesome, but that does now mean that I know the red one is mine, and I have been taking it for a spin today. And as you can see, it is absolutely filthy. And yeah, it's already got some battle scars. But I did promise Peter Smith from the CW01 Creations YouTube channel, who built both of those RC Escorts, that I was going to use my one. And yeah, I've already been having loads of fun with it. In fact, the plan was to start this video, you know, with some footage of the RC Escort. Before I'd even turned the camera on, I just ended up playing with it until the battery died. But I do have another battery charging at home, so I'll show you some footage of this thing in action in this video. Now, while we're on the subject of Peter and the RC Escorts, he's actually asked me to ask you guys, what is your favourite colour for a Mk2 Escort? So if you could all put in the comments your favourite, or you know, the most popular colour for a Mk2 Escort. Yeah, really interested to hear your opinions. Now the weather is brightening up nicely, which is good. Now, although I'm not planning to put Maude fully back together and get her back on the road today, there are a couple of bits I want to look at replacing, and these are the bits that I recently picked up from my friends at BURTON Power. So what I've got here are some Superflex poly bushes, and these are all for Maude's leaf springs. So one set of these two are for the front of the leaf springs, and if you've been watching my videos you'll remember that I actually found a little bit of play on one of the front leaf spring bushes. And then yeah, the other set of these is for the rear of the leaf springs, and then these are for the shackle, which is at the rear of the leaf springs. Now it's worth noting that I've got a wide range of poly bushes available on my website at marcushayesuk.com. so if you're in the market for any bushes for your old school Ford, definitely check out the range we've got, and if you don't see the ones you need, just drop me an email and I'll see if I can source them from one of our trusted suppliers. But yeah, to get these things fitted, I'm obviously going to need to jack Maude's rear end up, so let's crack on with it. So this is potentially going to be quite awkward. We've got one set of bushes that need to go in there. The other set goes in here, the rear of the leaf spring, and then the really small ones basically go where these shackles go into the chassis. The driver's side shackle bushes are going to be particularly awkward because we need to undo the nut that's on the shackle, which is through this hole, which is easy on this side. But on this side, we've got the fuel pump arrangement and the fuel tank to get around. But I'm sure I'll be able to figure it out. I'm potentially going to have to undo quite a lot of stuff to get the axle and the leaf springs to lower down enough to get all the bushes in. So let's cue some music and see how much hassle this is going to be. I disconnected the shock absorbers and the anti-tramp bars from the axle, then I set to work replacing the front leaf spring bushes, one side at a time. With the nut and bolt removed, I was then able to tap the leaf spring out of its mount, and on the driver's side, the old polybushing sleeve came out really easily. I lubed up the new polybushing sleeve with the lube that came in the kit and pressed in the two halves of the bush, followed by the sleeve. I then used the jack and my hammer to get the leaf spring back in place before reinserting the bolt. The passenger side was way more hassle. Spent about an hour trying to get this bolt through, and it looks like all I had to do was put the jack under the middle of the leaf spring. Yeah, that looks like it should just about bash through now. Wish I tried that an hour ago. Thank God for that. Now we can crack on with the other two sets of bushes I've got to do. It looks like I'll be able to get to that shackle nut from underneath. The driver's side spring shackle was a bit of hassle to remove. Finally. And the old polybush sleeve was actually stuck to the shackle. With the leaf spring polybush fitted, it was time to fit the smaller bushes to the chassis, so it was out with the old and in with the new, which were of course lubed up beforehand. Now they're actually very loose in there, but I'm guessing when you put this in there, it will spread it open a bit. Much like when you put the sleeves into the polybushes, they you know, make the bush tight. I don't remember which way up this goes. That doesn't go in there, so that must be for the chassis. Put a bit of lube on this bit as well. So that's one side down and one to go. And again, the passenger side was an absolute nightmare. All right, into a new day, and I can't remember how much I actually filmed last night when I was struggling working on Maude, but I've just made my way to Inky Autos to pick up Maude's new welded diff, but hopefully Inky can also help me with this. As I say, I'm not sure how much I was actually filming yesterday when I was struggling in the dark, but basically this sleeve is from the old polybush. I need to get that off of this threaded section. I was using a hammer and, you know, trying to, you know, balance it on top of this socket and hit it to try and get the sleeve off. The sleeve's definitely moved because, you know, it's got to the point now where that threaded bit is flush with it, but the socket's jammed on there as well. So yeah, I'm hoping that Inky will be able to cut this sleeve off for me, and then yeah, this threaded bit is actually like splined onto there, so maybe I'll get him to put a tack of weld on there just to make sure that that's in place as well. But yeah, what an absolute nightmare. Yeah, I did have like a spare shackle that was actually for sale, but it turns out it's slightly different. So I was able to put the car back together to roll it back in the garage, but it's not the correct one. I'm not going to be able to use it. So I do need to try and get this usable again, or I'll have to buy another spring shackle. All right, so here is Maude's new welded diff, which Dean welded this up, you said, didn't you?
Yeah, Dean done that one, yeah.
Massive thanks to Dean if you're watching. That'll be sweet. And Inky's already making a start on trying to sort this mess out for me. Thanks in advance, sir.
You don't thank me just yet. We don't know how it's going to go.
With a few taps, my socket was free. Oh well, got my socket back at least. And then Inky clamped the sleeve into the vise and fired up the oxyacetylene.
Like old Ford, it needs a choke to get it going.
The heat made the sleeve expand, which then meant that Inky could tap out the shaft from the sleeve. Whee!
Heat is the workshop's best friend.
I just hope I didn't muller the thread yesterday when I was beating it with a hammer, but
Yeah, she's quite warm.
We'll find out. After cooling the shaft down, he attacked the thread with his thread file before cleaning up the shaft and the rest of the shackle on his bench grinder so that it was ready to wave his MIG welder at it. And then it was back to the bench grinder to give it a post-welding clean-up. Inky, it's going on Maude. It doesn't have to look pretty.
It's got to be done right, mate. That'd do. There's enough strength in that, mate.
Lovely. Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome.
Much appreciated as usual.
No problem at all. Yeah, she's good.
All right, we do need to get out of Inky's way, but before we do, can we show some appreciation for Jamie's latest purchase, the Ratlook Sierra Estate. He's actually painted it with this sort of rust effect paint. So yeah, it's looking even more ropey than it did the last time we saw it. As you can see, it's sitting on the 16-inch Mondeo rims, very similar to the Escort Cosy rims, of course. And in the engine bay, it's still got its original 1800 CVH lump. On the ramp over here, we've got a really modern Fiesta that the guys have been working on that's got the same 3-cylinder turbo lump that Roger, Cat's plastic Ford Fiesta, has got. And this has been having the notoriously annoying wet cam belt changed. And Inky tells me that it is as much of a faff as people say, but yeah. No bother for the guys down here at Inky's Autos. And Jamie's Ratlook Sierra is going to look really cool next to Inky's Ratlook P100, which unfortunately has got a cracked rear end of its Type 9 gearbox. If you've been watching my videos, you'll remember that Inky's P100 had a gearbox leak when we were on the way to Ford Power Live, I think it was, and yeah, that turned out to be the actual rear end of the gearbox being cracked. So yeah, unfortunately, old Trusty is hibernating at the moment. Over here we've got Declan's old Mk2 Transit that he's installing a V6 lump into. Yeah, really cool project, Essex lump in an old Transit. And speaking of transits, the Inky's Autos Transit is being turned into a camper van. Right, I've got to get out your way, but massive thanks, as always.
No problem.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. If you need a decent mechanic and you're anywhere near Uxbridge, which is just outside West London, definitely get in touch with the guys at Inky's Autos. I'll leave all their links in the description. Hello, into a new day, and since the last clip, I've had yet more grief with Maude. I'm going to head round to her garage now to bring you guys up to speed, but in the meantime, I'm going to let you see some footage I captured yesterday when I was playing with my RC Mk2 Escort. And I thought for the music, I would answer a request from Jacob Said, who happens to be one of my patrons, who has asked for me to bring back some of the old music that I used to use on my videos, which was produced by an idiot with a guitar who has absolutely no musical talent at all. That would be me. Check out this footage. So as you can see, the RC Mk2 Escort is loads of fun, and it does seem to be holding up to all the abuse so far. Now, apologies for the noise in the background, by the way. There's some gardeners working, but I think I'm going to start by going into a bit more detail about the issue I had the other day when I was trying to put this thing back together in the dark with the spring shackle. So right now you can see that this is all back together, except there's no nut on here. There's actually no nut up there either. And yeah, if you look, you can see that this thread doesn't poke through here. Now, this piece that I put on in the dark the other night to get this thing rollable again was actually one that I had for sale on eBay. And luckily it hadn't sold yet. So yeah, I had a pair, but I had them listed separately because this one is, you know, absolutely fine, but the other one, which obviously half of it is attached to the car, on the other piece, this hole here had been drilled out. I don't know why. I don't know whether that means it wouldn't be usable, but I just listed them separately because one is essentially damaged. But that hole, or so I thought, that larger hole was actually going to save me, because what that meant was that the other half, this piece, you know, the shaft on that, that meant that that was able to go through, you know, the top of this piece, you know, like this basically. But because this piece has a shorter shaft on it, that doesn't poke through here properly. So I'm guessing that these shackles I had for sale are for a Mark 1. But yeah, I was able to just about, you know, have this all sort of leaning in place to get Maude rollable to get her back in the garage, which was a relief at the time, because yeah, I was struggling in the dark and I'd had enough. But the way I had Maude jacked up here, I wasn't even able to shut the garage doors and just leave her outside the garage. Yeah, I would have had to leave the garage door open. So yeah, that's that. Now, this is the piece that we saw Inky save for me the other day. He obviously got the sleeve off for me and then tack welded this on. They're normally just splined on, but I thought, you know, while I was there and whilst Inky's got a welder, might as well weld it on, because, you know, while I was trying to get that sleeve off myself, I was sort of, you know, holding it with mole grips and then banging this bit just to try and get them to twist. So I thought I may have twisted and ruined the spline. But anyway, unfortunately, this end here, where I was, you know, whacking it with a hammer, was bent basically, and the thread was ruined. And the other day I basically ruined all 4 of the nuts from the spring shackles on this car, you know, trying to drive them on to repair that thread. But yeah, I wasn't able to do it. So that is scrap, and you can see here, these are the nuts. They're just, you know, stripped. Now, as it turns out, brand new spring shackles for a Mark 2 Escort are less than £30 a pair on eBay, which I didn't realise. So I've ordered a set of them, and yeah, I'll be able to fully put this thing back together once they arrive in the post. And yeah, at least she is now rollable, so I can get her in and out of the garage. Now, one thing I did do the other day is I've drilled out the rivets that I used to hold this to the floor, and I've undone the fuel tank, and that was basically for me to get the nut that fell below the tank when I undone this spring shackle. And I'm obviously going to leave all this like this until I fit the new spring shackles, and then I can bolt all this back in. So yeah, fitting the brand new spring shackles should be a really simple job. And then all I've got to do is, you know, bolt the anti-tramp bars back to the axle, put the nuts back on for the shock absorbers, and yeah, once it's on the ground, just tighten everything up, basically, on the rear axle. So yeah, happy days. And then I can move on with, you know, dealing with fitting her new welded diff and the shafts, etc, etc. Now, another thing I failed to do yesterday was to fit my replacement boot latch that I bought recently. The one I bought looks slightly different than her old one. It had this sort of extra bit on it, and as a result I wasn't able to get it in. So, you know, I started shaving away some of this fiberglass, and, you know, I still couldn't get it in there. So I resorted to try and basically, you know, break that bit off of the latch, which I was able to do, you know, just bending it backwards and forwards, and it snapped off. That bit is actually here, but I think I already threw the latch away. Yeah, it still wouldn't go in the hole in the boot lid, so I started trying to bend the bit that the lock actually engages with. Yeah, because if I was able to sort of bend that a bit, it would have fit in there. And yeah, but it didn't work, basically. It ended up snapping just like Maude's one did when I tried to bend the bit to make it meet the boot lock. So yeah, absolute fail, and I'm gonna have to order another boot lock off of eBay. But at least she's got these springy things now to hold her boot lid down, which are a bit more reliable than the rubber ones that were fitted. So yeah, that was another fail yesterday. Now, around the front of the car, another thing that I wanted to do yesterday was to fit this breather to Maude's catch can. I'd already drilled a hole in this when I fitted it, just because I like them to breathe, but, you know, I want to have a breather on there, mainly just because it looks cool. But yeah, to do that, I basically purchased this little fitting, and as you can see, the thread there has snapped off. Basically, before I started, you know, taking the catch can apart to drill the hole bigger, etc, etc, I wanted to see if I had the correct nut for this. And the only nuts that I had in my garage that were the same thread were nylocks, but, you know, I just wanted to double check that the pitch on the nut was correct. And yeah, when I threaded it on, it broke it. Now, I don't know if it's, you know, because this material is weak and I was using a nylock, but yeah, another fail. Now, what I've actually ordered now is a fitting like this, but it's from, you know, the companies that do the fuel fittings and stuff. And I think their bits are like cast alley, so they're not super strong either, but I've made sure that I've ordered a nut that is definitely the right thread. It's a weird M10 by 1 thread, so I've ordered a nut from eBay to go with it as well, and it's not a nylock. So when that comes, then I'll be able to put this breather on this catch can. Now, while I am around the front of Maude, I want to send a massive thanks out to Barry Parks, who got in touch following the last video that I filmed on this car, talking about the steering rack. Now, he sent me a picture and let me know which part of that video to go back and watch. And it definitely looks like, in the footage, that there's a crack in the shaft of the steering rack, you know, where it goes into the steering knuckle. And, you know, I went back and looked at that footage, and yeah, it literally looks like, when I was like looking for play, it looks like, you know, part of that shaft was moving and part wasn't, like as if there was a crack in it. But yesterday I was around here with my beautiful girlfriend Kat, and I was getting her to turn the steering wheel, you know, getting her to rock it with the wheels on the ground, and then getting her to turn it sort of quarter of a turn and then rock it again. So, you know, I've looked at it all the way around. You know, I was using a light to shine in there, and yeah, I can't see a crack at all. So I can only think that that bit of footage, you know, it's just went a bit glitchy in the video. But yeah, massive thanks to you for getting in touch anyway. Now, one thing I did notice when we were doing the test yesterday though, the alloy clamps that I've got on this thing, they don't have any bushes in them, and I explained how you've got to put like a spacer under each one. The passenger side one has the bit of plastic that comes with the clamps, and then the driver's side I've just got this really thin bit of metal. And yesterday I was able to see that on the driver's side clamp, you know, the rack isn't sort of slipping in and out of the clamp at all, you know, but on the passenger side it is. You know, you can see that the clamp's staying still, but the rack is moving inside it. Now, someone got in touch and said to me that I should be adding a bit of rubber on those clamps, but yeah, I definitely need to have a look at that next time I'm round here. I'm going to try and add maybe a couple of washers underneath the bit of plastic, or maybe get some of that sort of non-slip tape stuff, or, you know, put a bit of rubber in there. But yeah, massive thanks to whoever it was that advised me to put the rubber in there. But yeah, that is definitely something that's not right. The rack shouldn't slip, you know, within the clamp at all. Now, there is a little bit more negativity to report before we end this video, and you may have seen this in some clips already in this video, but yeah, she rotten. She is starting to go really rusty in certain places. I noticed a bit recently on one of her inner tubs, yeah, on this driver's side, you know, she's going rusty in a lot of places, and to be honest, the inner seals have started looking pretty orange for a while now. Yeah, getting a bit crispy. Now, I still think that this shell is well worth saving, but yeah, she's going to need some work soon. I've definitely been watching this chassis rail and this inner wing get more and more orange recently, so definitely need to tackle that. But yeah, in general, you know, I need to go around the car and yeah, throw a MIG welder at this thing if she's going to survive, you know, much further into the future. Now, I'm in a fortunate position where there are companies that, you know, are willing to do bits for me cheap and free, you know, in exchange for promo. So yeah, I need to decide whether I'm just going to send Maude somewhere to have the welding done, or whether I'm just going to buy a MIG welder and have a go at it outside my house. Because yeah, I like to try and do as much as I can, especially on Maude. You know, it doesn't have to look pretty at all, the welding. I just need to cut the rust out and throw some metal in there with a welder, hit it with an hammer, make sure that it don't fall off, and yeah, that's good enough. But yeah, it's kind of weird. It's gone full circle, because now things like the inner seals are starting to go, and they're the bits that I welded myself when I first put this car on the road. But I want to keep her going. In the back of my mind, I'm not going to lie, I do have the option to just re-shell Maude with Heidi's shell, but I think that shell is a bit too good to be using for a ropey drift car. So, you know, the current plan is to, you know, keep Maude's current shell going. Anyway, I need to pack up round here and get home and edit this video. I have had a bit of grief, you know, with my old MacBook breaking, and I had a couple of days where I didn't have a computer, so I'm just trying to catch up with everything. So yeah, this video already is out a bit later than I was planning, and yeah, I've obviously got less done than I was planning as well, because yeah, even this polybush job isn't actually finished. So before I go, I want to send another massive thanks out to Peter for building me the RC car. I absolutely love it. Also, massive thanks to the guys at Inky Autos for doing the bits that you did for me in this video. And as always, massive thanks to everyone who's constantly getting in touch with advice about my cars. So that's it for this video. If you did think it was any good, please do give it a thumbs up and a share. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Click subscribe if you're new. Feel free to follow me on Facebook, TikTok and Instagram. Check out my website for merch and parts. Massive thanks to my patrons for your ongoing support. I'll leave all the links to everything in the description as usual, along with my email address for anyone who wants to contact me. But other than that, until next time, thanks for watching.